I'm open for questions.
Terry, thank you so much. I was going to say, take off your screen share. My goodness, that was really, really fantastic. What a greatly researched book you have there.
Yeah, I really spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 8 years of my life putting that together, and then another additional couple of years of editing, and then finally getting it into print. All the books are now available. Something I didn't see initially in this presentation, which I must have left out, but if you wish to order the books, you can go online. Any bookstore will usually have it. Amazon, unfortunately charges a lot more than most, but then they also charge cheaply. So I don't know what's going on with them. Your best bet is to look around and find the lowest price. Barnes and Noble isn't too bad, but then you're ordering from the States. So if you're going to order from within Canada, Chapters or Indigo will have it online. If you don't see it, ask for it, because it should now all be online, all 6 volumes. And the thing is, I have probably a half dozen of the soft cover books. If anybody's interested, what I suggest you do is, I'll give you my phone number, which is 604-941-5164. That's the home line. Or I'll give you the cell number, 604-916-7384. And if you wish to email me, you can email me at Tibando, Tibando, @telus.net, or Terry Tibando @gmail.com, Tibando. Okay, so the wizard.
Terry, I know that you know Alfred, and Alfred has an omniversity.
Yes.
And he was on our show talking about his new book a few weeks ago. And he's looking for teachers for the omniversity. And I think you would be a fabulous candidate for that, to teach a course. So I don't know, you might want to talk to Alfred.
Well, thank you very much. I've actually appeared on his News Inside Out program.
No, but this is something else.
This is something else, yes. And I was listening to his presentation, and unfortunately, I don't fully agree with everything that he's involved in. I think that there's some obvious truths to what he's saying. The problem with this whole phenomena is a lot of people will come out and give presentations and write books and stuff. And when you're asking them to back it up with some facts, with some videos, some photographs, etc., what you're getting most of the time is somebody's anecdotal experience or story. And, you know, that's fine and dandy. That's their experience. I can't shoot that down or deny it. But it has to resonate with the individual. And if it doesn't resonate for any number of reasons, then obviously you're going to look further. And that's what I always say to people. Research, research, research. Don't just take somebody's word as that's the way it is. I've done my research, but I don't expect anybody to accept what I just finished talking about. Ideally, read my books. They're going to be a little bit on the expensive side because they're like a university textbook. But you're going to get like good quality research in it. It's got all the references quoted on both photographs and text. It gives you the places to go on the website to look up some of those things. So when you do that, you can technically get something that's going to run you into 10,000 pages of research. And it took me 8 years to go through them. And I had to revamp a lot of my current knowledge. And then all of a sudden I had a lot of other of these ET experiences, and I still get them. In fact, one of the videos I did not show, which I had, but I seem to have lost, was another amorphous orb that came down from the sky down towards the ground, then went back up. And like, they know where I am at. I've got a photograph, and again, I didn't seem to show up on this, but my wife and I were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary, and somebody took a picture of me and my nephew and his wife. Right above our heads are orbs. So they know where I live, and I've had weird things happen in this house where things get moved around or banged, or you can hear noises upstairs when we're downstairs. And I thought, well, they're ETs. And my wife has seen one. I've had them come to me when I'm lying down in bed. I said, guys, I'm trying to get my rest. You have to come back another time. Now I've decided, the heck with that. This is an open, safe house. If you want to come and visit, bring your friends. You got my permission. So that's what they're doing. They're just showing up, you know, and they're not what you expect. And they're always in this holographic image. They don't come out physically and say, hey, I want to shake your hand. It's nice to meet a human being, and it's nice to meet an ET. You know, I haven't got that yet. Much as I want it, I haven't got it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to open up the floor to questions. I'm sure people have tons and tons of questions for you.
Go for it.
That was just a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much, Terry. I learned a lot.
Was it, what was the time limit on it?
We did, it went over a little bit over an hour, but I think an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, well, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it was pretty good, pretty short. Yeah. So the first person with hands up is Brian.
Brian.
Yes, Terry, thanks for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I really like the pictures of all the different types of aliens, very thorough, encyclopedic. And the videos, I think I saw the video once of that one gray, I think he was captured. It might have been the one from 1949 to 1952. Yeah. Like when I saw that video, I saw it a few years ago, and I thought, well, maybe it's real, you know. But the thing is, I never know what to trust on the internet. Like, how many of those pictures and videos do you think are really real, or which ones do you think are sure, or you think are real, and which ones aren't? Like, I never know.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. I look at these things, and I try to look at it with a critical perception, and saying, well, if this is, how would I create that? And when you look at the time in which it was taken, then you say to yourself, did we have the technology to create that? Well, if you look at any movie, you can see they can create almost anything. Mm-hmm. And we know that with AI, they can create people that don't even exist. You know, and we say, well, geez, I just saw this person, this is what he looked like. And then you find out it's computer generated. So, you know, what this really says is that we're living in a time when instead of following a moral compass, whatever your moral compass may be, and by that I mean your spiritual direction, belief, whatever that may be, if you don't follow that, then it's fair game for them to do whatever they want, and the rest of us are going to be duped by it, and we won't know what is truthful and what isn't. So I always say, look into it, investigate, research. That's the bottom line. Then decide for yourself.
You know, just to stick my 2 cents in, that 1942 crash where they had the 4 beings, 3 of them were dead and 1 of them lived for a while, the EBs.
That's 42 or 47?
I think that was 42.
Well, there's one.
Oh, you won Cape Girardeau, 1941. You mean Missouri? Yes. Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Yeah, yes. And 1 of them survived, right?
Yeah, I think it was April 1941.
So I tend to believe that story, and when I've seen the pictures, I'm a sculptor, so I look at things very critically. I look at the art very critically, and I think, were they able, same as you said, were they able to create this kind of flesh, did they have the technology in the 40s? And I don't think they did. I honestly don't, because their sci-fi movies that they made were really wonky, you know. So if they had been better, they would have created better aliens in their movies.
Yeah.
So I tend to think that that being is real, and it's one of the four, you know, that survived, and apparently one of the little guy that talked to Eisenhower. So pretty famous little guy.
Yeah, that's you know, there's debate about that too, as to what type of being that Eisenhower, or whether it's one or more than one being that he met. And I've heard that it was humanoid beings who resembled somewhat like us, and they offered us basically an infinite energy, and all we had to do was to give up our desire to have atomic weapons.
That's right.
You know, to employ them. And I think Eisenhower would have gone along with it, but the problem was he had his Joint Chiefs of Staff and some corporate private sector people with them, and they said, oh, no, we can't do that because it will affect our economy and blah, 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 blah. What they were really saying was, if you go that direction, we will no longer be in a situation where we're financially powerful and we can call the shots. And I think whether that was the small ETs or the tall ones, whatever information they gave us or would have provided us, Eisenhower had to turn them down for that reason. And that wouldn't have happened if he didn't have his other cronies with him.
I agree. I think his granddaughter, Laura Eisenhower, says that as well. She says that his public persona was very different from how he felt personally about things.
Yeah, he sounds like he was a great man, and I like to think of him as Earth's first ambassador to the universe, in that sense, that he met and I think perhaps at least once, perhaps twice, with ETs. And the thing about it is that his last speech while in office reflected how he felt about the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
That when military gets in bed with private sector, then we will lose control of that. And he said the only way to gain control is to be vigilant. Unfortunately, we've lost control.
We have. Yep. No one listened to him.
Yeah.
Kennedy said the same thing later on.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. And I think the late Paul Hellyer knew a lot as well. He a lot of his information did come from Stephen Greer, but he also had his own research. And he made some remarkable statements, such as the UFOs that fly in the sky is as real as the aircraft that we fly. You know, and to pretend that what's currently going on, and though we're not hearing a lot of it, but if you delve into it, in the US, you know, they talk about the naval pilots seeing and being harassed, as they say, by ET craft, which look like Tic Tacs and other things. I don't deny what they're seeing. What I have a problem with is they're not in the loop of what's going on. These are their own military covert assets. They don't understand that. They've had these since the early 50s. So they've had 70 years to get this thing right, and they have. And these craft that are flying around aren't just Tic Tacs or saucers. They also have, they look like boomerangs. They look like inverted pyramids. They're a ball shape. Any configuration you can think, they built it. And the reason why they built these in different designs, and you have to listen to Michael Schratt, who is a military artist and historian, is that he says that when they bring down some of these craft, they replicate them to whatever, and then they mass produce them secretly. And so there are bases, not only throughout the United States, in Canada, in Australia, in Britain, and in other places in Europe, South America, where they have underground facilities that not only manufacture this stuff, but they're cloning and doing hybridization of PLFs, programmable life forms, that look like greys and reptilians. And there's a witness from Britain who worked in the Peacemoor underground facility with the name of Barry King. He said, I was doing my job. One night they brought two very large men brought a very large reptilian type creature down the hallway past me. And he said, this creature looked so powerful that it could have taken out all three of us without a problem. And he said that they're manufacturing these things underground. And when you look back at Benowitz and what he claimed he saw and whatnot, all of a sudden you start to put it together and you realize maybe he wasn't as nuts as everybody claimed he was, that he was being manipulated.
Who was that?
Paul Benowitz. And so he had said he had been in an underground facility and saw these things. And even Schneider, and I believe that Schneider went and was digging down with a few of his men into an area, and they sunk a shaft down and they broke through into a cavern that had gray ETs running around. What he may have done, I'm starting to slowly put this together, is they broke through a chamber in Dulce, New Mexico, which is a known military underground base, and that they were probably manufacturing these things. And when they had a shootout, it wasn't just with the ETs, but with some of the military, but they didn't see the military per se. Mostly it was the ETs that were firing, because they're programmed to do this, just like a drone. You fly these drones around, that's what they did. They're computerized. And I've got another example of this where I can't, again, the name slips me, but you see him often wearing a cowboy hat, and he talks about abductions and how one of his witnesses had been abducted constantly and she was getting fed up with it. And he said, fight back. When they come for you one night, fight back, whatever you can. So when they showed up, she fought back and she scratched at this one's face, and the lens came off and she saw computer circuitry behind the eye.
Oh, wow.
I've got that in one of my other books. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, people, wake up. This is not, you know, it's this old thing, Occam's razor and the power of deduction. You got to play the game in order to figure this out. And when you get enough good leads and you start to piece them together, all of a sudden a picture forms and you realize then what's going on. And then when you start to realize we're so deep in the covert military intelligence complex of the agenda that's being played out. And the people say, what about this false flag? It's been happening since 1953. It really has, and it's been earlier. I mean, my experience was in 1953, which is 8 years before Barney and Betty Hill had their experience. And I believe there's somebody in our group that's had one since 1947, of small grayish type ETs. And they weren't even discussing those types of beings.
How about Rolf had 1942 in Germany, in National Socialist Germany, had Greys 3 in his bedroom at the age of 7 in 1942.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, you know, there are people out there who have experienced this, and what we need to do is to get us all together and start writing down our stories so that we can start comparing notes. Because that's the only way we're going to get at this. You know, the military is down. You know, we're all waiting for officialdom to give us the answers. But in fact, we're never going to get the answers that we're looking for. They're going to tell us what we need to know. And in fact, when NASA is saying they're going to get Roman Catholic clergy to prepare the masses for the eventual contact with ETs. Excuse me? I love Christians and I love Christianity and I love who Christ was. But the Roman Catholic Church is 2,000 years old. And if you go back any further than that, it gets more ancient. Don't you want to be more current and up to date? Shouldn't we be looking at things in the Quran or in the Baha'i writings to see what this is saying? Does it marry well with science? And I know that with Baha'i faith, they'll say science and religion are the same knowledge, and they go hand in hand. And if in any case of a dispute about matters, Baha'i should always give science the due respect and accept what they're saying. How many religions will say that? Not many that I know of. Did I lose everybody?
Well, Dominic's got her hand up, but Mimi's supposed to be hosting. She's not here, but Dominic's got her hand up.
Dominic, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. My God, you've done such a body of work, having 6 volumes. That's unbelievable amount of work, and all the photos that you gathered, and just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I took a lot of notes as you were going through your presentation, and so I have some questions for you.
Sure.
You referred at the beginning that we need to use logic and deduction in addressing this issue. Our rational logic, our deduction, our 5 senses, science, basically. And yet you had ET show up in your room, orbs, you remote view, and nothing in science validates that perceptual way of knowing. They're 2 different systems, and they don't necessarily cross over, because science and materialism is limited to what we can perceive with our 5 senses and replicate and prove. Whereas with remote viewing, or, you know, having interactions with interdimensional beings who come through your wall interdimensionally, that's a whole nother realm. So how do you hold those 2 different worldviews or ways of perceiving the universe? It's confusing to me, because you say use science and logic, and then you say trust the prophets, the Baha'i prophet,
all prophets,
or all prophets. And how can you judge if what those prophets are saying is the truth?
That's a good question. It really is. And I'll try and give you the answer in a nutshell, and it may not satisfy you, but I'll do my best. Most religions tell us that we were created by an all-powerful being whose presence is everywhere, whose knowledge is everything, whose power is beyond belief. What he does, in order for him to be known by his creation, which is what we are, someone has to be a spokesperson. And when if you do say a historical review of the life of each prophet, you realize they've gone through hell just to get the word of God out, whatever that is. And people have either attacked them, exiled them, poisoned them, shot them, crucified them, basically get them out of their life, because the people that are in power are usually the governments and the ecclesiastics. And what happens is, when that power is threatened by somebody saying something new that they are obviously aware of, and they recognize that what they're saying is so different and so challenging that it affects their position, that they are fearful of losing that power. Because whether you're a church, or whether you're a politician or a king or a ruler of some kind, you for centuries and through your ancestors have controlled the masses, and for some reason they feel that the masses have to be controlled to their whims and wills in whatever direction they have. And so many of the religions say, you know, this isn't the way it's going to be, and it won't be. And so what they're saying is that, first of all, I represent divine knowledge. So when you look at knowledge in general, we're looking at two types, but really the same thing. One is religious or spiritual, and it's given to us in the form of revelation or inspiration, and it's put down in a book form. The other is scientific, which is through invention and discovery. When you look at those two and you start to see the similarities, you recognize they're really saying the same thing. One may be more allegorical, more flowery and literal, in literal form, not, I don't think I'm using the right word. And the other one is based on fact. So the thing is, what the Baha'is would say is that because knowledge comes from one source, it may be two different fountains of knowledge, but it's really the same water flowing through both. And so what we are trying to say is recognize that if you are a scientist, you've only got half the knowledge if you ignore what religion has to say. If you're religion, you've only got half the knowledge if you ignore what science has got to say. In other words, you have to bring them together to make sense of what is the big picture. So the thing here is that when someone claims that he's a prophet of God, you're going to find out what is your proof. And he'll say things that perhaps you've never heard before, and that may be fine. That a lot of people say things that we've never heard before, but the things that they say are so profound that they change society, they change civilization and evolution in a different direction, and they back it up with their own life. In other words, they're willing to suffer the consequences. How many of us, put your hands up, are willing to die for your beliefs? Great, that's terrific. Now, if somebody suddenly came through the door with a gun and started shooting you, based on what you know or believe, you know, are you just gonna say, okay, I guess this is my time. Thank you very much. I'm out of here, right? Or are you one who is going to try and investigate what science says or what religion says? And you know, people get so hung up on religion that they say, no, there isn't any God, you must be out to lunch, and how can you believe in such nonsense? Well, I'm going to say, disprove that God doesn't exist. You can't prove a negative. You can prove a positive, but you can't prove a negative. And I've read books, and one was a very small book, probably 2.5 by 2.5 inches, and it was about 26 pages. And this woman from India wrote about the reality of God. And I wish I still had that, because it was very profound. And she went through it logically, step by step by step, proving that you as a human being cannot trust your senses. Because the very fact that I can knock on this table and say, hey, that's really hard, that's a hard surface, when in fact it's made up of atoms, and those atoms have spaces between it. You know, and my hand is made up of molecules and atoms, but it also has spaces. So what is this form? What is this table? Right? That table has no more comprehension of who created it than I have comprehension of a divine creator and who created me. It's beyond my comprehension. Like the universe is so expansive, it's beyond my comprehension. There's so much life in it, it's beyond comprehension. The fact is that life is tenacious, and life will find a way to survive and thrive. That's the way it is. Look at the pandemic. We're not out of this pandemic yet, and that silly little virus is playing havoc with the rest of humanity. I just find it like really amazing. It's intriguing. It's frustrating. It's all of those things. So I don't know if that helped you.
No, it didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because when you say you can't rely on your senses and science is based on 5 sense reality, you just invalidated the scientific study.
Yes, but how do you explain people who do have psychic ability? And I've experienced some of it. I don't experience it all the time.
That's what I'm asking you. Because
Yes, and so the thing is, there's more to our being than this physical 3-dimensional substance.
I agree.
The fact is that we are, in fact, interdimensional beings. That's another way. That's a scientific way of describing spiritual beings. Same damn thing.
But from my perspective, when you say it's scientific, to me, it's another way of knowing that's beyond the 5 sense reality. It's a direct knowing by our higher self or our soul self. And as we awaken, then that inner being can access those higher dimensions and those higher worlds and have that truth, but it's a direct knowing. It's not relying on 5 senses. It's not relying on scientific study. And so for me, in my experience, that inner direct knowing, whether it be remote viewing or whether it be astral travel or whether it be a dream state or channeling or whatever, those are different ways of knowing beyond the scientific methodology that we base our beliefs upon. And so from that perspective, everything we believe, everything we've been taught through scientific materialism is not true.
Could I ask a quick question, Terry?
Go ahead, Barry.
Is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you, do you suspect that all man's religions have come about to simply explain the ETs in our past just to help mankind explain their presence? I wonder.
Another good question. As a Baha'i, which I think you have figured out by now, is that life is pernicious. It's throughout the universe, and there are beings in different states of evolution. Some of them still very primitive. I think we're just barely out of the trees, and we're trying to move from this immature adolescence into a state of mature adulthood. And we're at that tipping point, very, very close to that tipping point where we finally emerge as true adults. And adults don't fight amongst each other. They're cooperative. They work together. Now, ETs have been in the universe probably as long as we have, believe it or not. But I think what happened is that if they believe in a divine presence, being, whatever, then they may have got it right the first time their first prophet manifestation of God showed up, and they listened and they followed directions. And when they did, they moved ahead a lot quicker. So this is why I think when you look at the evolution of humanity, people will say, well, we've only been on the earth for maybe a few 100,000 years, maybe even 5 million years tops, right? And other than that, we're a new species running around creating all kinds of chaos and confusion and all the rest of it. But were ETs created so that we can know them by religions? No. I think that religions is just saying you are one of many species within this universe, and that at some point, hopefully, we will engage with them. In fact, some of us have already engaged with them. And so this is where the more information we get out to the general public, not only does science become affected by it, but so does religion. And religion, and hopefully science, will have this marriage between the two. I mean, Catholicism is already discussing this, that science and religion are really probably the same thing. They've forgiven Galileo and the hardships that they put him through. And just recently they have apologized to the indigenous people for the atrocities that they have gone through. Now, the thing is, that means that humanity is learning and is growing and adjusting. And I do not believe that an ET came down and said, you know, this is a great planet to put some life on it that can grow up and be as intelligent as we are. I do see that one divine creator, call it a supreme extraterrestrial intelligence, created all things. Could ETs create life? Yes, but here's the whole point. Can you take something from nothingness, put it together, and instill a spirit into it? Because that spirit is the guiding, motivating force that controls all living, animated creatures, whether it's animals, plants, rocks, trees, fish, birds, whatever you can think of. There's a spirit within it. We can construct the physical form, but the problem here is that we're taking something that's already existed and just put it into a new package. That's all we've done. We haven't put something like a spirit into it. So when we can figure out what the spirit is, and I think I know what it is. There's only one spirit in the universe, not pieces of spirit. There aren't individuals, but there are rare, unique individuals. Then what we're saying is that the God spirit is animated through all of us.
My point was whether or not religion was created to explain that spirit.
No,
Explain.
no.
It seems
Religions
like
existed long before we knew about ETs. Long before that, and they weren't set up to talk about the physical things per se, other than if they were in line with the spiritual nature of that being or us. So whether it's in the Bible, whether it's in the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Buddha Vakana, whatever that book is, they're talking about the spiritual nature of mankind and his soul and redemption or evolution as such. And that we come into this world as a child, but we actually have a pre-existence. If you look at the spectrum of light, the spectrum of light has a portion, a very small portion of what we can see visually. But we know on either side of it, both on the red and infrared, and there are other radio waves, there are all kinds of other energy forms. On the other side, there's there's gamma rays and X-rays, and God knows you can go on at infinitum. We are like that little spectrum, which is the three-dimensional universe that we live in. But we're told that we're a part of something greater. So we have a pre-existence, this temporary existence, and we have an after existence. And the pre-existence and the after existence is infinite. Now that begs the question, how old is mankind? Well, if we're a spiritual being and we're infinite, that means we had no beginning and we had no end, because we're attached to the greater divine creation of the universe, which is more than just the three-dimensional universe. You got to get your head outside of this world that we live in and start looking beyond it in order to understand where you're at. Once you understand that, then you realize this is just a school for us, training, so that we're prepared for the next level of existence after this.
I don't know. I think that's where religion came from, was our experience of the unexplainable. That's my theory anyways.
Well, and if it works for you, that's all that counts.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
You see my poem?
Did I see your poem?
Yeah, you will. It's
Oh,
on in the comments.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think I mystified everybody.
I don't see any hands up.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a hand
That's a
up.
Duke it
question.
out. Duke it out.
I want to mention, you mentioned that octopus type creature with the tentacles, and I read somewhere that the octopus is actually alien. It could have been brought here by aliens. It doesn't seem to be indigenous to Earth. Have you read that theory before?
Yeah, I have.
It's so different than everything else.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, when you look at the octopus and the squid and the jellyfish, and there's a few other things. I mean, I've read some findings that of ancient life, that there was some creatures that actually lived in some of the lakes of North America and up to very recently that had they were about the size of a dog. They had they had, I think, a head with a beak on it, and it had 4 tentacles, and each tentacle had a claw at the end of it. And it used to swim in some of the lakes. I don't know about the Great Lakes, but it used to swim in the lakes. And they said they found evidence for it. And the point I'm getting at here is that there's all kinds of life forms. Like, we don't even know half of the stuff that's in the ocean, because some of it lives right down at the very bottom, like in the Mariana Trench, that's 7.5 miles deep. And they've only gone down there a few times, and they've found like, what do they call it? Some kind of tubular worm around volcanic vents that seems to thrive on a few crabs and some other creatures. I mean, there's things like I don't think that octopuses are necessarily alien, but it wouldn't surprise me if there may be similar creatures on another planet like it, or, and this is my own personal belief, and I have no foundation for it, so I'm tossing it out there, but because we have seed vaults on this planet, in case a worst case scenario where we either have a war or catastrophic calamity hit us, that all these seeds from various plants can be used to revitalize the earth of forests and plants. And probably there's even sperm and ova of some kind stored in these vaults. Well, guess what? ETs have been doing the same thing. And by that, they collect samples of things when they land on this planet, and have been doing so for decades. And there's sufficient documented evidence to support that. Now, that may include humans, which case then that brings up the question of abductions. And some people feel that ETs are abducting people for medical experiments and whatever else they're doing. Some believe it's military my labs, that it's all covert. I bring up the third possibility in my book, that which I call it the human preservation program hypothesis. And by that, what I mean is that ETs have collected sperm and ova and DNA from humans. Now, this may appear to be something of an abduction. And I don't like that word abduction, because I think it is used willy-nilly without real thought put behind it. Words are powerful encapsulations of thought. And so when we use words like abduction and mutilation, it conjures up an image in our head of something almost graphic and visual. and as well as visual. And the point that I'm getting here is that an abduction, for the most part, when it's done, usually means the person that's abducted, if it's human, by another human, they don't come back. They're usually murdered, hidden, done away with. That's it. When you're kidnapped, it may become an abduction, but more often it's for ransom. You want something in return and you do it forcefully. So, kidnapping of humans by ETs, I can buy into that. But if ETs are also sampling our DNA and our sperm and ova, and then putting us back into our beds or our cars or wherever we were taken from, what's the reason for that? Same reason we've got. We may end up destroying this planet. We're very close to it. Very, very, very close to it. And that worries me for everybody. I love humanity. I don't care how bad you are. I still love you. You just have to get your shit together. And all I'm saying here is that if ETs take us, then maybe, or at least our sperm and ova DNA, then maybe they will use that to repopulate the Earth, should the worst case scenario fall, or put us on another planet, such as in that movie Numbers, or not Numbers, Knowing, where they took the kids from the planet and they restarted humanity somewhere else. So in this sense, then, those who give up their DNA, sperm, and ova are the lucky ones, because it's them and their progeny that will start this planet over again. So there's a whole different way of looking at this. Therefore, that doesn't mean that ETs are malevolent. It's just that we don't understand their consciousness. Guess what? The Baha'i faith says the same thing. We can't understand the consciousness of another ET because they're not human. They don't think that our way. They think differently based upon the elements and conditions of their own planet. And once we understand that, this is the marrying of religion and science together, we can come up with an answer or a solution to problems. It isn't just we accept one or the other. We can accept intuitively what we feel to be the right thing to do. And if the right thing sits comfortably with us and it's positive, I don't see a problem with it.
You know, there's another hypothesis, Terry, which basically acknowledges the supreme being, but also recognizes that different people, different beings are on different levels of development. Mm-hmm. So let's say that there is a supreme being, but there's very, very highly advanced civilizations. It is possible that they came here and seeded us. That doesn't mean that they created us. That doesn't mean that they were the supreme being. And also, when you look at abductions in that kind of framework, then you could look at it like they're checking to see the development of the people. And I tend to believe in that theory more than anything else, that the abductions, probably there's also the idea that we could, destroy ourselves. And so that there is a seed bank for humanity. But I think that if there was an experiment that helped to create us, then they're probably checking to see, how we've been talking about upgrades lately in some of the shows. Some of the people that have been on have been talking about upgrades to our mothers and upgrades to ourselves as part of what happens on a gurney. Not just taking, but also giving us extra senses or extra superpowers, let's say, of some sort, psychic powers, healing powers. And if you look at it that way, then, you could say that sometimes when people are being abducted, these developments are being checked on because we need help right now. We need help. We're in a very bad situation here on this planet. And if we don't get it together, then we are going to destroy ourselves. You know, so you're very correct on that. But I think there's more than three hypotheses on this. And one of them is that the superior races did seed us with the supreme being's permission and, you know, go ahead in every way. I don't know. So that's another one that's.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with that. Because as I said, if ETs are sampling our DNA and sperm ova, and in case of the worst case scenario, and they seed us on another planet, what's to say we weren't seeded here too? So I do not dismiss that as a real possibility. So the thing then becomes, how do we prove that? And at this time, I think it's going to take us a while to firmly understand that. We can perhaps get direct information from our various ET contacts. I can tell you that through 69 years of ET contacts, and in the last 29 years, I have yet to have an ET come up to me and say, Terry, here's the formula for a 0-point energy and how to build it. Here's how we get here. This is what we think about religious matters. You know, this is where I come from. This is the history. I haven't had any of that. And why? Maybe it's me personally. They don't like me in that sense, other than he's an interesting creature. We'll study him a little bit more. But the thing is, I hear people saying, they tell me this and that and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, geez, that's wonderful. I wonder how I can get in on that, you know, because I'd like a piece of that information. And I think we all do, because it will confirm or dispute anything that we've always thought. But here's the danger to it. And Jacques Vallée states this, that we've got to be careful that we don't start creating a religion based on extraterrestrial theology, that they could probably come here and they could probably teach us a lot about religion. I'm sure they could, because they may have been able to get through their hardships and problems when they were evolving, and they did the right thing when they were supposed to. So I'm saying to your answer to your question, Minnie, is that I don't dismiss any of that. That is certainly within the realm of possibility, and I'm keeping my doors open on that one. But there is a agenda afoot that we have to be very careful of.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you hear other people like Carol Rosen and not only Greer, but a few others who said, what's up with gray ETs and reptilians? You know, why are we constantly being bombarded with this? Is there no other ETs out there? Yeah, there is an abundance of it. And I've shown you some photographs of what people have taken. And they don't look like grays, and they don't look like reptilians. They look like something else.
It does look like an agenda to me as well.
Yeah.
Because suddenly that was all that was going on.
Yeah, and so they want to scare the bejesus out of us. And unfortunately, you know, part of this, I say, goes back to the time when when Germany was being overrun by Nazism, fascism, and they wrote the playbook on this, from which the U.S. has acquired and is now doing it, but they're doing it a little more carefully, and it's drawn out, and it's taking its time, because it's like a chess game, and they want to make sure that each move is the right move, and they use AI intelligence to make sure that they are playing the right move at this time. The problem is they haven't factored in the what I call the divine spiritual factor into their game, because it doesn't include that. That's their downfall. That will be the cause of them losing control. It's like whoever gets to the top wins. Well, guess what? Even if you have even if you had 1 million wealthy people, there will still be one individual who wants to be on top of it, who wants to control everything, and they'll fight amongst each other to get to the top. And that's how I'm looking at it. So, you know, this is a complex world. And the only thing I can say to people is be the best version of yourselves and be nice to the person beside you or behind you or in front of you, because they're there on the journey with you. Even if you don't always get along, doesn't mean they're against you.
Mhm. Well, you know, you said something a little while ago, and I wanted to respond to that, where you said that, you know, the government's never really going to tell us the truth. Well, that's why I do what I do here on this show, because I want to get, excuse me for a second. My dog is going crazy. Because I want to get the stories. I want to get each person's individual story, and then we can start to corroborate and put the puzzle together. In fact, I don't know if Jackie's still here, but Jackie's, we discovered that we have a lot of similarities in our stories, and our stories don't involve the grays, the abduction type situations that we've had have been with other kinds of beings. And I loved all the pictures that you had from the caves and things, and I take that as evidence that we have been visited since early on, since Neanderthal or even before. I really do look at that as evidence, the pictographs and the cave paintings, you know, because it's pretty obvious that they're spaceships and people in space suits, you know. It's pretty clear, I think.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there. And all I'm saying is, when you look at those kinds of evidences, you know, you can see that there's a similarity and a familiarity to the things that we're experiencing currently. What I have problems with is that, for instance, when you turn on the TV and you flip to Ancient Aliens, they're ignoring a lot of facts, and they're piecemealing it. And the only thing that they say is, well, this is what Ancient Aliens believe in or theorize. Okay, well, that's fine, because you now made it very clear that that's only a theory. But if you're going to promote something as being based on fact, then you've got to include all the facts, even if you don't agree with what those facts were initially. And as I said, I had to change a lot of my points of view when I started writing this book. I felt like not only did I have ET sitting on one shoulder, I had angels or somebody sitting on the other shoulder, and I was banging this stuff out. And it was based on my experiences, the people I met, the things I saw. And my best day, I cranked out 40 pages, you know, and I don't know how I did that. It just suddenly, it came to me. And I have to tell you that book almost killed me, literally. It almost killed me writing it, because I ended up with medical problems from sitting too long. I had a DVD, and then I ended up with blood infections and what have you. And it was because I was sitting, banging out this stuff, and I'm only typing like this. You know, I don't type like this. You know, and that's why it took me 8 years. But they always say that if you write a book and if you write 1 page a day, that's a good book. That's a great book, because that's 1 page per day, and it represents 360 pages or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So,
you know, about Ancient Aliens, I don't really watch that. I've seen a few episodes, but I don't really watch it because there is an agenda there.
yeah,
There is, and
I know a lot of people who went on there and then decided, I don't want to be back on this program any longer,
right.
because they're going all over the place. You get a bit of truth and you get a bit of disinformation, and you think, how do I, you know, I tell people it's docu-entertainment.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing that you didn't mention, and it wasn't in your presentation today.
Sure.
I don't know if you've dealt with this at all in your research, which seems to be pretty vast, is the pyramid idea. Like, one of the ways that I've really changed is that I'm looking at pyramids in a completely different way, what they do, what they are, what they were, and who built them. You know, I'm starting to really research that, and there's half and half in what I'm finding. So did you ever look into that?
I touched on it a little bit. I actually read that the Great Pyramid of Giza, that based on how the tunnel system runs up into it and down, that one could chart human evolution, at least for maybe 5,000 years, and they can predict certain indications along there when we had the First World War, the Second World War. They even predicted the Baha'i faith, believe it or not. And what it was you go along towards the what are they for? The King's Chamber, and at the chamber there's a 3-foot step up in order to get in. They said at that point, that's when the Baha'i faith took off. And in which case, it's like human evolution is like this, and all of a sudden, it goes almost vertically. And when you look back to the period of 1844, the U.S. Was about to shut down a lot of its industries, or particularly its patent office, because they figured all the inventions that had been invented were suddenly, they were there already for us. And all of a sudden, on that year, it went nuts. People started bringing in all these inventions, and all of a sudden, a lot of the things that we enjoy today came out of that time period. Guess what? That's the time period of Baha'u'llah and the Bab. You see, one of the interesting things is they said humanity, if we take it from an ET point of view, is such a backwards planet. If there's an evil planet in the universe, we're it. We're it. And the reason he said we got 2 prophets this time is because we didn't listen to the other prophets when they came. We went our own willy-nilly way. So now God said, I'm sending you 2, and you won't have a choice in the matter. Not that we're going to force it on you, but I'm going to bring about situations where you have to make the change. You have to grow up. That's what he said. And so I believe one of the reasons the agenda of ETs is it isn't here just to take DNA and whatever else from us. They're watching us to see if we're going to mature. They're monitoring our history. They're monitoring our development. Every time we make a construction, change the earth, do anything, positive or negative, they're watching. So are they the watchers? Yes, in that sense they are. Are they angelic? Yeah, they are. Are they in human form? Yeah, they're that. So all of those things have a yes to them. But we have to be careful in what we acknowledge and what we don't acknowledge, because sometimes there's a spiritual message in there. Other times there's a physical message in there, and we have to be discerning about that. We have to look very carefully and don't jump to what I call illogical leaps of conclusion. We cannot do that. We need to be able to look at things rationally and be willing to make a change in our thinking and our behavior if it points us in a different direction. There's a Chinese proverb that says the journey of 10,000 steps begins with the first step. You know, so that's really what it's at. And so the fact that ETs are coming here because they want to see, like we're at this, what I call the apex of a new evolution on this planet. And it's based on both material and spiritual, or you could say spiritual and technical. And the problem here at that apex is if we go forward in the right direction, we advance into a golden civilization. If we get sidetracked and pulled away from that, then we fall back down into medieval darkness, where we're suddenly living the days of Mad Max, you know, and fighting for the little bit of oil, which we know isn't the answer to the question of energy on this planet. There's all kinds of other
We're about this close to that right now, right?
Yeah.
With oil prices going up and
and people are switching to electric cars and all the rest of it. So now it means like the powers that be will want to keep us on the grid system. The whole point of this is to get us off the grid system. In fact, many religions have been telling us to get off the grid system, not so much in those words, but to be free thinkers and to allow a natural process of evolution to occur on this planet, which doesn't necessarily mean that we should have military forces and law and order to the point where it's brutal and stifling. We need law and order anyways, that's regardless, because we're growing in numbers year by year. But the thing is that what we have to do is come to an understanding of our purpose in life. And it expands many complex issues and directions. And each of us has a part to play. And each of us is, you could say, if there's a God, we're the ganglia of God's brain. And whatever God knows is because of all these ganglia, whether on this planet or throughout the universe, is trying to tell God what's going on, because this is what's going on. And so when you look at the universe, and the universe, according to many religions, is infinite, then that means that this presence of divinity or whatever you like to call it is everywhere. And so all his little particles, all his little ganglia neurons are feeding into this. And when you look at the universe, there's not only like clumps of stars, and then we have galaxies, and the clumps of galaxies, and when you go further out, there's strings of galaxies, which says this is like the human brain. Everything is a fractal of the other, from the microverse to the macroverse. It's all the same, and that the universe is actually a conscious living entity. It thinks, it feels. Maybe not in the way that we think and feel, but it does, and it responds, and it will give you information. And so each individual will get a piece of whatever God is handing out to us, whether psychically, or whether through reading or research or invention or discovery, or through spiritual inspiration or revelation, whatever. We're given all these opportunities to learn. That's the purpose, to learn. That's my wisdom. I think we got two questions, Brian, and then Bear.
Okay, yeah, you said we can't understand the way aliens think, and I've come to appreciate that. Like, I feel like I've come to realize we're not at the top of the food chain. Like, there's beings higher than us and wiser than us. And you used a word in your presentation called exotheology. I've never heard this before, and I feel this is what's affecting my Buddhist path. I feel that some of these aliens are wiser. So now I'm kind of formulating my hypothesis, my worldview, ufology, my worldview as a Buddhist, spiritually, like I'm Theravada Buddhist. So now I'm feeling that the mantis, like Richard Dolan says in this book, Alien Agendas, he says the mantis may be the highest level alien that humanity has yet encountered. So I feel like they're the wisest, and they give their instructions to the ancient greys, the tall greys, and the greys carry out their plans. So this is kind of administration. So I feel I'm trying to formulate what sort of governmental structures in place over the world. So that's my current hypothesis. So I'm developing my own kind of exotheology, that I think the greys are wise and the mantis is wise. So I feel I should defer to their wisdom, because it's kind of like, Christians say, well, it's up to God, or theists say it's up to God. I feel it's kind of, they're sort of guiding the world, and I'm having some trust in their guidance, because I think humanity left to itself, might destroy itself, or it's not really growing. Humanity's not developing or growing in spiritually there. Just wonder what's your comment on that one.
Well, I appreciate like I know that you're a Buddhist, and I appreciate that because because when we delve back into a lot of religious of the past up to the current, the answers are there, and sometimes there's a snippet here, and there's a passage here, and there's a whole chapter there, and books and all the rest of it. And the thing is, what we got to do is to avoid the pitfall and trap of falling into prejudice and hatred. And that's really hard because I struggle with it daily. It is it's really hard to put aside your prejudices, and because we allow. I can only say for my upbringing, I had a kind of a brutal upbringing. I struggled. My dad wasn't the easiest person to get along with. He was opinionated, and his opinionated personality was based on ignorance because he didn't have much of an education. I had at least 2 or 3 years of university education, and my daughter finished her education at university, and I'm really happy for her. And she thinks really well. She doesn't have the same beliefs as I do, but she has some, and it's through her own personal discovery of life. And so Mantis, my understanding of Mantis is they're a very gentle ET, that they are part of those who help to, I think, instill healing in some people who have contact with them. And the thing is that, you know, when you see, if you're fortunate to sort of experience where you may have been on board their craft, or perhaps you visited their planet, I don't know, and you see various ETs in one assemblage, you got to know they're working together. They're not there on their own personal, hey, I'm here to see what I can get, you know, but rather they're working together, much like a United Nations. They have United Federated Planets. And there are indications in the Baha'i faith. In fact, before I even became a Baha'i, I was already pondering this whole concept of family unity, tribal unity, city unity, national unity, global unity. What about interplanetary unity? And I gave that thought, and then all of a sudden the Baha'i faith came out and said, well, there actually are some writings about that. Not really specific, but they allude to that. So what I see here is that when we learn one concept of unity, and we develop it and learn really, really well, we're given another opportunity of a greater expanse of that unity. The doors open wider. And so we've reached a point where we built the nations on this planet. We're now ready for global unity. But we're not the kind of unity that, just give me a second here, I'm trying to think, oh, what's that president and his son who became president? Lapses of memory here.
Oh, George Bush and
Bush,
the New World Order by George
New World Order,
Bush.
right.
In 1991, he said that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would have come to me eventually, but anyways, he's talking about a world order that's based on materialism only. That's the problem. And you know, you can only go so far with that because all things have a lifespan materially. They come into being, created, whatever, and eventually through deterioration, they break down, and that's it. Well, guess what? Everything is a microcosm, macrocosm of each other. It's a fractal, Mandelbrot, whatever situation. And so when you look at just that kind of planetary world order that he's talking about, that doesn't benefit everybody. It only benefits the wealthy, powerful on the top, right? And if you got the military to back you up, you can't go up against it. Well, guess what? We're reaching the point where there's 8 billion of us on the planet. And if I were to count up the number of militaries and the number of people involved and their weapons, I think 7.5 billion of us can take on 500 million. And guess who would win? We will. That's the whole point I'm getting at. And then you'd have a whole new world order from that point. But I don't think that that's how it's going to happen. If you base the world order on a spiritual material balance, the yin and the yang, again, it's all these religious philosophies that come into play, then what we do is we travel the middle path. And I believe that ETs have been doing that for the most part. Are there other malevolent ETs out there? Sure there are. Yeah, we're one of them. And, you know, when you come to this planet, you take your life in your hands because you don't know what the monkeys are going to do when you get here. And we've demonstrated that we'll throw bricks, stones, rocks, shoot at them with guns, missiles, all the rest of it. And like, welcome to the planet Earth. This is how we treat strangers. You know, we'll capture you, we'll dissect you, we'll figure out how you work, and we'll take your technology to boot. And if that isn't enough, we'll go to your planet and start looking for technology. You think that when they went to Mars, they're looking for life? No, they're looking for technology because they knew it was up there. They've already found through the orbiters the various areas where there's probably life has originated. I've always believed, though I can't prove it, that it's possible for humanity may have come from Mars, in which case we seeded this planet. and in which case that's fair game, you know. There's a thing called the exploded planet hypothesis, and it's in one of my other books. And it talks about how Tom Van Flanderen came up with this hypothesis, and it wasn't well accepted by the rest of astronomy and scientists. And he said that he believed that the asteroid belt was another planet, and there seems to be very strong evidence it was, and that what happened was either through natural catastrophe or internal planetary catastrophe from intelligence, where they may have been trying to tap the power of the planet. And what happened is they blew up the planet. And that devastation had such far-reaching consequences that it affected not only all the inner planets, including our moon, our Earth, Venus, and Mercury, but if you look in the opposite direction, it affected Mars, who was right next door to it, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And mostly Saturn. If you look at Saturn, there are moons that have been shattered, and then they look like they've come back together again in these weird geometric forms that says that how is that possible? Yet there's something that brought them together and they've reformed. There's these great big chevron shapes on one of their moons. You look at Iapetus, and Iapetus has this sort of yin-yang, light and dark aspect to it. I remote viewed that planet back in '96. And Greer said, there are beings who have bases, and I can tell you where some of them are. Some of them are in the ocean. Some of them are actually in the land or under the land. Some are on the moon and on Mars, and I think on one of or more of the moons of Saturn and Jupiter. So I remote viewed, and my mind took me to Iapetus, which is this light and dark moon. I didn't know what it was called because I should have, because I took astronomy, but I never knew about it. I photographed Saturn through their school or their university telescope, so I know what Saturn looks like. But anyways, what I remote viewed was this wide equatorial rim that ran around the planet, and that it was fairly high and fairly wide, and that the surface seemed to be made up of geometric shapes or forms. It wasn't naturally round or even apple shape or pear shape. It seemed to be angled all the way around, and that it also had a very large tower on the surface, and this tower was telescopic. It could move up or down. And I thought of it as some kind of communication tower. I couldn't prove it. I've never been there. All I could do is give him my impression. Well, that was 96 in, was it 1996? So it was 2004 that the Cassini space probe went to Saturn, and they went to the moons, and they went to Iapetus, and they photographed, and here's this big rim that runs right around the equator. It's about 12 miles high and about 12 to 20 miles wide. It has a very light in the dark aspect to it, which they kind of knew about because they'd seen it through telescopes. But it also had this large tower in the southern hemispheric area. And actually, I saw it when Richard Hoagland posted it, and he said, this is unusual, but he also recognized that there were others places where these towers existed. And so my remote view was confirmed by an actual event, CE7. Okay, that proved it. That proved it. And that was, I had seen that 8 years before it happened. So the thing that I'm getting at is remote viewing can be very accurate, but it can also be very abstract. So you need more than one person doing this to really confirm what you're saying. And when I had a remote view in Crestone, Colorado, where I was on board a spacecraft and it landed, and I described all the events that occurred around it, another woman had exactly the same remote view. So then Dr. Greer said, oh, then we've got some real information here. So we all thought it was going to happen that day based on the fact that we had remote viewed it in the morning. Turned out it was the following day. So this really says that that time is fluid. That even though there may be things that can happen, there could also be things that may prevent it from happening because, say, our perceptions or our evolution on this planet suddenly did a slight turn and we went off in some other direction. So then that would not have happened. But the fact that it did was an indication that that was a correct remote view. So these are the kinds of things that I've been able to pick up. And as I say, a lot of this is in my 6 volumes, and I mean I literally cover everything. I turn over every stone looking for an answer, and I look for things like the best available information, not garbage, not speculation, but stuff that I could that was either accepted in the UFO community or in other sciences or from a reputable source, you know. And when I got that, then I realized I was onto something. And if I was onto it and I got 3 or 4 good positive hits on it of information, it went into the book. And that's what I did. So whatever you read in there, if you read speculation, I tell you up front, that's speculative. But if I don't say it, it's based on the facts that I found. And I think we lost Bear because he had his hand up.
I muted myself. Yeah, so that's great, Terry. Well, we're actually now at 3 hours, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people have burning desire to ask questions.
Well, I was just going to say, if you've got a desire to purchase one of my books, I'm going to sell it for, I think I said $75, which is about $20 off the original price. Plus, the only thing I'm going to charge you is 5% tax because I got to collect that for the government. But it's going to be well worth it. I mean, and I know somebody who's already purchased several of my volumes. In fact, I've had them, I've sold them in the States. There's some in throughout Canada. I sold them in Britain. I sold 1 or 2 books in Germany. I've given a book to somebody in Israel. I'm trying to get this out. You know, I'm not looking to make money off it. I'm looking to put out information. And the more people who get that and pass it on, is doing a world of good, because I think what you're going to look at is some of the best available information. And yes, it's a little bit steep, which you would normally pay, you know, I mean, I think you pay now $35, $40 for a book. Okay, this is probably up to maybe $3. If you're ordering hardcover, obviously you're paying a bit more for it, but look around, price it out. But I have copies, and I've given you the information of how you can reserve a copy, and I'll put it aside, and I'll put a tag inside it saying this is so-and-so. And then all you have to do is contact me, and we'll arrange where you can come over and pick it up, and there you go. I've had Alfred Weber paid me a very nice compliment when I went on his program. He said, "This is a tour de force of information." He says, "I've never seen anything like this." You know, and that's the first volume. Well, you got 5 other volumes.
I wanted to ask you about that, Terry. So when I introduced you, I said that you were launching the book.
No,
I
I've already,
thought that you were launching the book. So this is only volume 1. Have you
Yeah.
got all the other volumes?
all the others are now out. What I did was actually I launched it on November 2019.
I was there. We had it in Port Coquitlam, right? We had your book launch
Right,
party.
right,
I was
right.
there.
I don't
yeah.
know if you knew this. I came down with advanced arthritis that day. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh no.
And suddenly I was hobbling, you know, and I thought,
Well,
what
you
the
seemed
hell?
okay. You gave a good talk, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was trying to hide it, you know,
Oh.
because I didn't know what was going on. And so I was diagnosed with advanced arthritis in my right hip,
Oh.
and I had bursitis in my left hip, which I think
All
was
getting
caused-
older, Terry.
Yeah, I'm becoming old and decrepit, and I'm trying to dye my hair and look younger, and it's so I'm vain. I'm vain. I have my flaws, right? But anyways,
Well, the reason I'm asking
Yeah.
you is because I'm really interested. If this is volume 1, why don't you come back and give a talk on volume 2, volume 3? You know,
Well,
if they're
if I-
really different from each other.
yeah, if I did that, I can't go through the same process of pulling out everything. I mean, it's like rewriting the book all over again.
Mm.
What I can do is give a talk off the top of my head, and I can make referential points. And then what I could do is get 1 or 2 slides and talk about it.
Yeah,
which
that
is
would
what-
be great.
Which
Yeah,
is
that
what
would be
Greer
great.
does, because he doesn't go in there with anything. It's all up here. And the guy is an amazing person, because I think he's got about 186 IQ, and compared to the ETs, he's a dummy. That's what he said. He's a intellectual moron. And I'm thinking, okay, that makes me right down the bottom, you know. And I've got a fairly good IQ, but you know, I'm probably around 150 or thereabouts, and that's above average. But you know, and I met one other person who had 193 IQ, and he bragged about it.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a teacher. And I thought, well, bully for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What it is there are things that we are aware of and we're passionate about. And I'm obviously passionate about this sort of subject. I have like, it doesn't show it, but behind me, let me see if I can click out of here and I'll show you my library. And you'll get an idea of what's what. So behind me off to my left shoulder is my library. And then over on my right shoulder, in the background in the dark, is all my Baha'i books and a few other Qurans and Bibles and stuff. And then in front of me to my left is all my history books. So those are the things I'm very passionate about, and particularly medieval history and what have you. So the thing is that those are the things that I delve into, and I have some reasonable knowledge about. And so if I give another talk, I'll probably only pick out a few slides that will sort of indicate some of the things. You may find that the talk goes a lot quicker because I'm not dwelling on a lot of
just
things.
do a different book though, right? Do a different volume the next time you come, and that'll be really interesting because you know, not a lot of people will be able to come up with $100 for a book, right?
Yeah,
But
well,
I'm going to try to pull the money together so that Vancouver UFO could buy it.
yeah,
And, you know, and then we'll just do readings and stuff.
yeah. I mean, if you want a hard cover, there's a chiropractic doctor bought one of my books for the office, and he bought the hardbound, and he paid the $120. I guess
Right.
he could afford to do that, and even I would balk at paying $120. But when I sat down and figured out what it was going to cost to produce the book and print it up, I was appalled because it's print on demand, and I've got to figure out a way to get that price down because I want to sell by volume, not by individual orders, and that's the problem. It cost me about more than $120 just for me to print it, get it distributed, and get a copy for myself. That's
you know that Jeff just did his, right? He just had his book launch.
Yeah.
You should talk to Jeff.
Yeah, I need to do that
because I know that he's not paying huge amounts.
Yeah, I need to do that. Find out who the publisher is. Like I have a publisher in Victoria who basically, I hate to say this, did not even do textbooks until I came along. And then they didn't realize the volume of the work that I was putting out. And they actually control that book. Now I got to take that control away from them, which means I have to buy out their basic representation as the publisher, because I thought when I dealt with them, I owned the book. I was the co-partner in publishing it, so I should have control on it. Well, I have control only to a limited extent. You know,
yeah, because like when you do it with Amazon, for instance, and you do you know, the single printing, they don't own it, you own it. They get a percentage. That's it, right?
That's right. Yeah. So because all the books I did went through Ingram Sparks, they did the printing and the distribution, and I'm a bit miffed at them because, you know, as an author, you're the last one to get paid, and you're the one that puts out the body of work. So quite frankly, if I was setting up, I get paid first, everybody else gets paid after the books sell. That's how I think it should work. But it doesn't work that way.
Oh, Terry, I could give you my story. I published my book in 2005 with Motilal Banarsi's publishers in India. And just a few weeks ago, they said, well, they're agreeing to send me $200 US to settle up any past sales. I haven't been paid in 17 years.
Oh.
Now we're negotiating a new contract because I changed one chapter. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, this is part of the problem. And
that's terrible.
And I realized that because I was writing a textbook and I wanted people to not have just textual information, but pictures to look at to equate the text with the picture, so they can say, oh, okay, now I understand. I can get that. I grasp the concept and the idea. And so I realized then I was going down a path that very few people trod. That's how I'm a salmon that swims upstream all the time. And I encounter all kinds of obstacles, and that's what my life is like. It's if I encounter, I'm hitting whatever it is, and I'm trying to be like a laser.
You know, like Mimi was saying, you can self-publish on Amazon, and it's like print on demand or whatever, and then you have some control over it. You know.
Yeah, I do have.
My second book is like that.
Yeah, I do have control over these past 5 other volumes because I set the prices and all the rest of it, and I call the shots on it. Now, I may be contacting them later and say, okay, maybe what I got to do is decrease my royalty substantially enough that it allows for volume to take place, so that I make my money through volume rather than through individual purchases. And if I can do that, and you know, if it works out fine, then it means I'm not only selling more down in the States and in Canada, but I'm selling globally. That's what I'm trying to do. And so I've sent people copies of the book through USB information or by download to WeTransfer, which can transfer a lot of information. And so I sent them off to various places globally because I wanted to get out, you know, and see what happens. But as an author, I would say to anybody, make sure that the topic you're going to put out is something people are interested in, and not just a few select groups of people, but you know, more generally. I mean, it's surprising how you write a book on finances or on politics or whatever, and people buy it like it's going out of style. And yet the something that you write about like this is probably going to end up changing their life forever. It's like, well, tell me when it happens. It's happening now. So anyways, I got a feeling we're done. So it's a really nice seeing you guys again. And if I'm going to do this, I'll probably will do it in the summer. My wife and I are going to go to Germany to see my daughter Annika and her husband Diego, and we're going to go in late May and until June. So it will probably be after that time that I will try and do something again.
Terry, I was just looking at Mark Mihalik's thing here. He's went to Amazon and it's out of stock. So you
That's
might want
nonsense. That's I gotta tell you, sorry to interrupt you. That's nonsense. Amazon is playing a game that they're betting on that you won't do the research. Again, I do the research. Here's what they do.
No, he wants to buy your book is all I'm saying. Just answer him. He's on the chat.
Yeah.
I'm not saying argue with Amazon. I'm saying Mark wants to buy your book.
Okay, so how do I respond to him? By going in
just press the little blue button.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Let me just quickly, Mark.
Yeah, Mark is in Arizona.
Actually, Mark wants to talk. His hand is up. Mark can just talk.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark, please.
Hi, Mark. You can buy directly from me.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Nice to see everybody.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, I was just on Amazon, and the link that I found was for the paperback, but I did find another link. So I found all 6 of your volumes, so they are available. It was
Okay,
just a
yeah.
bad link.
Because I'm just writing a little quick response here.
Okay.
I can sell you a soft cover, which is all I got. What's funny is the hardcovers, I had few of them in, but they all sold out right away. Which surprised the hell out of me because I wasn't expecting that.
Right, you would think that the
soft covers, I sold a couple. People didn't want the soft covers, but they were willing to pay more for the hardcovers, and I just get it. And yet it's the same information. It's just one's got to. And if you treat your books properly, they'll always stay like they're brand new. I've got a whole bunch in the background. I baby them. I look after them.
Absolutely.
You know, but as I say, if you buy from me directly, I've got a few of them here.
Okay.
And my phone number, I'll give this to you.
Yes.
604-941-5164. That's the home line.
Perfect.
And if you want to get hold of me on my cell phone, it's 604-916-7384.
7384.
And I'm selling these ones for $75, which is about $25 and cheaper off of the price that you're going to get from Amazon. Amazon has a problem here. Somebody will buy up a number of books and then sell them at a higher price, which is ridiculous. I sold my book at twice the price that I was asking for it. And I thought to myself, there's nobody who's going to buy that.
Right.
I wouldn't even buy it. Right.
Well, I would rather buy directly from you than give Amazon money.
Right. And you're keeping it all Canadian and in the province.
The thing is that that Mark is in Arizona, so you'll have to mail it to him.
Well,
I'll pay the extra fee. I'll give you the shipping fee. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
I'd rather pay you directly.
I'd have to look it up. I actually was going to ship a book out to this fella in Israel.
Okay.
And I found out that the shipping cost was more than the value of the book. And I thought, that's ludicrous because it's a 6.5 pound book.
Wow.
You know, and like it's got 840 pages in it. And you're not going to be able to sit down in one reading and go through it.
Right.
You're going to be looking at it, and then you're going to be making notes, and you're going to be going to the references to find out where I got that information from and all the rest of it. And it's all there in the book. Like, I did your homework. I'm sorry. Now I want to collect on your homework call. But you're in Arizona?
Yes, sir.
I know of a person, he's a airline pilot, he's a captain, and he has bought one of my books. I think he may have bought others, and he went online. He actually bought the first book of this, and it was in black and white. And I said, what?
What?
He said, yeah, it's black and white. I said, but it says in the back in full color. I said, how are you getting a black and white book? And he said, well, I got it from Amazon. I said, send it back. I said, I would be embarrassed if you kept that book. I said, that's not what I put out. So he said, no, I'm going to keep it because it's one of a kind. And I said, well, so you know what I did was I ended up sending him all of my books on USB. And so he has it. I did that for a few people. I don't do it for everybody, but
Sure.
And basically, so he not only has that book, but he has it all on USB, and then I think he's bought a couple of them of volumes. I think volume 2, which he's giving away as gifts. And the thing about it is, check to see what the price is, because I know the US price is cheaper. And because you're dealing in US dollars, it's probably about it's like 80 cents to the dollar, to our dollar, cheaper. So you know, something like that, or 75 cents to our US to our dollar. But look at that. But Amazon has this issue, a problem of effing around, of saying they got a limited stock, or they don't have this, or this is the price if you want it. And then you go to another place and suddenly it's cheaper. And you say, well, wait a minute, if the price is supposed to be the same across all of the US, why is it that this company has more charging? Right now, I've seen it even less than what I told them. So I don't know what's going on.
Very true.
Quite frankly, I'm very suspect with Amazon, and if any other companies start pulling the same stunt, then I'm no longer in control of the book.
Sure.
You know, I've gone to bookstores here and they won't even take it. They won't even put it in there. And if I do, it's at my expense and cost. And if they sell anything, fine. If it doesn't, I have to come back in and collect it and probably pay them something for putting the book there, but which didn't sell. Like, give me a break. You know, you're not going to support your own Canadian authors?
Right. That's unbelievable.
Shoot me in the head.
Hey
Put me out of my
guys,
misery so I can move on.
hey guys, my family's waiting for me, so
Okay.
I'd like to shut this down unless there's something else. One more question. We'll take one more.
Brian?
Yeah, I was going to ask just in your presentation about the elongated skulls in Crackus Peru. I've done interviews with Brian Forster, like he's personally examined these skulls. He's probably the world's foremost authority. He was saying that they did genetic testing and they come from the area of the Caspian Sea. They lived there about 3,000 to 2,000 years ago, and then it seems they died off or something. But he said the brain capacity is actually 30% more than the normal. So it's not just stretching the skull or binding the skull. I'm just wondering, did you accommodate for that?
You know, that's true, because when a child is banded or bonded or boarded, whatever, I mean, the West Coast Haida and Salish did the same thing. And in fact, it freaked out the Europeans who came and landed on those islands and said, my God, you know, these are really strange people. They got these long-headed heads, and some of them were square. Okay. That's the kind of boarding. Why did they do it? I don't know. cultures roughly in the same time period globally did this. Now, I got one for you. Cro-Magnon man had a bigger head cavity than current man does. About 25%, 20 to 25% larger. So why did they die out? Because we're here, right? And we got a smaller head. Is intelligence based on head size? No. And they did a study on this between Africans and Europeans. And it pissed off a lot of Africans because they had these very nice, beautiful round heads. And the Europeans had this sort of bit of a narrow, but, you know, design on their head. The reason for this is that humanity is versatile in its evolutionary period. And here's the thing that's got me thinking. We've all grown up with fairy tales and where there were giants and there were fairies and pixies and dwarfs and all these. And guess what? You start looking around and you realize these people actually still exist or had existed. So we've been calling these stories and fairy tales when in fact this is another type of human species that has grown up at the same time as us. We've just become more dominant. That's the whole point. And so there are claims that people say that there's still giants today and that U.S. military has run into them. They killed one after it killed one of the soldiers. And these things are standing 12 feet high and could pick up a boulder and throw it at you and that kind of thing. And this is in the Middle East. Every culture has this. And there are grave sites and all the rest of it. Like, there isn't too much that escapes my purview. I delve into a lot of things. And I saw recently somebody had a video footage and looked like an old coot who went off in the country and explored. And he had video of pixies running around in the forest. You know, little beings of about maybe a foot or two high. And I'm thinking, is that real? You know, and they're moving around, right? It's the same as a little gray ET that's moving around inside the room, right? Is it CGI or is it whatever? So the point I'm getting at is we cannot dismiss that. We cannot dismiss the fact that there are elongated skulled people. That's a fact. I believe, though, that they are a form of human being. If they came to this planet and they look almost exactly like us, and there are cosmic cousins, that's why I put at the end of my thing, cosmic cousin production. There are ETs that you pass them in the street, you wouldn't recognize them. That's how good they are, but they're not from this planet. There may be something about them that's a little bit different. But if most ETs that come to this planet have a different internal structure, no DNA, it's not gonna be the same as ours. It's going to be totally different. We've got to expect that. The diversity in the universe is incredible, and life is tenacious or persistent. So, you know, I agree with you that what he's seeing is obviously there. You can't dismiss the evidence; it's there. But I'm saying you have to examine other things, just like the star child that individual had that had the very large eyes and a very large head. That could have been a deformity. I don't know that, but that's my initial take on it. And if I can be proven wrong, I'll be the first one to be on board. You know.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I guess Mimi's got to go.
Okay. Thanks for participating in my
Thank you, Terry.
presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very
Yeah, your presentation is just, it's excellent. And as far as books go, I understand the situation is they do these things so the word and the books don't go out to people. They try to make it difficult, and that's what you're dealing with is politics.
Yeah.
You know, and it's happened to other books too through the years that people have tried to have printed up and get out there, and it's just a wall that they try to put up.
And you know, if somebody puts out something that is actually factual and it contradicts what the public paradigm is, then they don't want that out. And I can tell you that a lot of my books, it contradicts a lot of things, but in a logical way, in a way that makes you think, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you really put your time and effort into it.
Yeah,
I've
as I
seen-
said, you're not going to find any books like
No, it's
I mean,
excellent.
I can just show you here. Those are
You know, I can't wait until we can all get together again. I sure hope they lift these
those
mandates.
are the books,
because-
the biggest books on the bookshelf. And I would say I've for the most part, I've stopped investigating because I got the answers that I was looking for. And I listened to various people to see if
Mhm.
they're saying something new or something I didn't include, or perhaps I've heard it before. And, you know, it's like a pioneer. I like to think I'm pioneering work. But there are others who have gone before me. So,
Sure.
you know, that's the way human society is. There'll always be somebody who went before you.
Yeah.
And all you can do is to support them or build on their work. So what is, was it Tesla or was it Einstein says, I stand on the shoulder of giants?
Mm.
You know, that's all we are. I mean, so you can't claim exclusivity. I don't claim that at all.
Right. Now you brought back memories, your presentation, because I've seen a lot of that through the years, and to put it all into one book and the volumes is, gosh, you know, that's a dream come true for
Mhm.
those of us that are seekers of the truth and want to actually be able to have a book that you get talking to someone, you can say, well, listen, here, I'll actually show you this, and then you can go from there. And
That was the whole point behind that.
That's absolutely how I felt about it too, Terry.
Yeah,
It's like
that's,
it was everything that it's not so much that I didn't know things, but it was right there, and so many different things were
as you go
very
through it,
obvious on the
as you
page.
go through these books, there's a chronological order. There's a bit of personality, that's me coming through,
Mhm.
and there's a certain bias to some extreme coming through, but I try to leave it open-ended for the individual to come to terms with it in his own way or her way. Because the thing is that, you know, you could say we're all human computers, and some of us are connected, and that means we're sharing information, and our computers are now on the same path, and our knowledge field is expanded. And then there are others who are independent. And what we're trying to do, and I believe that the human evolution is to eventually come together in a hive mind mentality. So like the bee, the ant, the wasp, whatever, fish, birds, they have a hive man mentality. And when they do things, they do it together. They move together. They're unified. And that's what we have to do. We have to become unified in our thinking, our feelings, our beliefs, our emotions, our physicality. Every aspect of the human condition needs to be unified. And it's up to us to find out what that method or means to achieve that is. You know, I think I found it, but it may not be for everybody.
right.
So I have to be the flexible one.
Yeah. Well, the only way anything ever changes is when you get a consensus of enough individuals to actually say something and do something.
Yeah.
And then things change, and they'll either change for the better or for the worst,
Yeah.
depending on. So
And
bringing out the truth is what I stand on. And there's things that through the years, having enough experiences of different things, that what you've even brought up today, you know, it's just it builds on to what I believe, but also what I've actually received mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, humans are incredible dynamic creatures. We really are. And we can't underestimate our potential and our abilities. And when I wrote the books, it takes you deeper and deeper into the subject. And by the time you get midway, you go, oh my God, I didn't think that this was even real. I didn't think this was possible. How did, you know, I mean, I've discovered life on Mars in different forms.
Mhm.
I found at least a couple of bodies. Somebody else has found, like I found a large skeleton. Somebody else has just found a large skeleton, and I was able to put it into, I think I was able to get it into my book, and it was in volume 5 before it went to print.
That
It
was
was a
remote
last-minute
viewing?
addition. Pardon me?
That was remote viewing, Terry?
No, looking at
Excellent,
raw
yeah.
NASA footage.
Oh,
I spotted this one being. I spotted him back in 2013. And it's half a torso, his head, what looks like an arm, a dissected rib cage. He's maybe 50 feet or less away from a machine that looks like it's either a submarine or a spacecraft or something. There's an animal just above him. Looks like what may be an aquatic animal, I'm not certain, cetacean. And there's another piece of the call it the spacecraft almost beside him. And when you cut and paste and move it back up to where the spacecraft is, it fits in. I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I just discover? And like what I discovered was not only intelligent life, but I discovered something about his creation, his technology, and there's other life forms. And this is in that lake and crater area that they got the Curiosity running around in there, right? And somebody else has found another large skeleton. So that confirms that there was a large beings there at one time. And I've also found what appears to be a shorter being. So what I'm getting at is that there's life on Mars, or has been life on Mars. I've actually found 2 animals that are similar to Earth. Now, this is getting me questioning, are these really being photographed on Earth, on Mars? And what they are is, one is a bilby, which is found in northwestern Africa, which is a hot, dry climate with reddish ground, and a marsupial mole. Both of these animals are marsupials, and they're both found in Australia. Now, when you start to look around where the rover is traveling, we got places on this planet that look like that. We have Baffin Island and Canada's Arctic North. We have Australia. We have places in Argentina or Chile, Atacama. Places in Africa.
In the States.
Yeah, in the States. So they could be filming a lot of this stuff and then saying it's Mars, right? Where now, so the point I'm getting at is, well, if I found 2 creatures and they appear to be living creatures because there's movement, yet I've been able to compare them with our current terrestrial life form, what I'm either looking at something that has a relationship to the life on Earth, and how is that relationship possible? Or they haven't gone to Mars, or they've gone to Mars, they're just not showing us what they're taking photographs of.
Right.
So all of that is in question. It's in free play.
Yeah, I've been on Mars through Google Mars, and I actually found a power supply. I mean, a power generator, and I've also found some openings that look very suspicious to some type of opening for like maybe a hangar or some way that craft can come in and out. And then some of the pictures too, even the ones that they do let out, if you really look at them closely, there's things that just don't normally would add up if there was nothing there, meaning that there's the shapes and things are beyond just our imagination. And I think, I think there's so much that's went on, and the alternative space program's been going for years, and all these different things. So, it's basically, the truth is out there. And if you get enough of the puzzle, it starts really showing the picture. And
then you got somebody knocking on your door.
Yeah.
I found things. It's in volumes 4 and 5, and basically there's an intricate tunnel, glass type tubes running around the planet, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And these appear to either be irrigation tubes or transportation tubes, one or the other, or maybe both. But there's also plant form, ancient sea life, animal life, reptilian life, human intelligence. Now, the other interesting thing is, as the rovers start traveling around, they're being monitored by space probes. And it's not Earth space probes. There's these little white orbs in the background, and every once in a while you pick one out, you know, and it's always within the vicinity of the rover. There may be a distance away, but that's what it is. And then there's a video which I was able to get hold of, and it shows a UFO taking off from the planet's surface. You know, well, come on, guys. NASA, what's going on here? I mean, you're not telling us everything. You're saying you're looking for water. There is water. Now you're saying you're looking for microbes. I got news for you. There are complex life forms on the planet, and you're not telling us.
Right.
So what are you looking for? We're looking for technology.
Well, you know, Velikovsky actually brought a lot of these things out back in the late 50s and early 60s. And, you know, I knew about this since I was a small child. I had a belief, and then having a telescope and seeing Mars, and of course the caps on it. Well, what do you think that is? You know?
Yeah.
It's water.
My whole story is that I was a child that was evacuated from Mars to Earth. That's my story. So I'm absolutely certain that there were human beings on Mars.
I had that kind of feeling as well, but I have no proof of it.
I have enough proof. I feel like I have enough proof.
Yeah, I still think I'm from Mars, but I yet to prove it. You know?
Well, you know, there was a nuclear exchange on Mars too.
Well, that's what they say, because there's radiation.
Well, you can actually find the information, and it'll show that they can tell that there's a certain area that it's not a natural radioactivity from normal minerals. You know,
that's Brandenburg's discovery, where he points out a couple of those areas. But let me point something else out to you. As much as that is a real possibility,
yes,
and it also begs the question: did we have an interplanetary war at one point? And that worries the dickens out of me. For obvious
it wasn't
reasons.
with Earth. I've seen this. I've actually been there during my evacuation. It wasn't with Earth.
Earth was a retreat place.
Earth was the place where they were evacuating to.
Yeah, and the other thing is that when you look at Tom Van Flanden's exploded hypothesis, that the planet 5 or planet B, whatever you want to call it, when it exploded, it sent this debris field all over the place. What happened was, and in fact, when you look at the Vesta and the series, they say, well, these are very large asteroid chunks. No, they're not. They're small moons, is what they are. And that's just a nice way of saying, oh, there could have been a planet there at one time. NASA will not get into that with you, but they know damn well that that's probably the real thing. Now they're going to ask you, well, what happened to it? Why? Was there a real planet there? And did it suffer natural calamities, or was it sort of an intelligence calamity? And the problem here is that most of planets have iridium in the center of their planet, in their core. And when we see it on the surface on this planet, there's a small layer, maybe about 6 or 8 inches or so, maybe a foot at the most. And when they look at it, at the layers of soil, they can date it back to about 65 million years. That's the time when the planet 5, the asteroid belt, came into being, 65 million years. Oh, it's also the time when the dinosaurs died out from asteroids or meteorites hitting our planet. And, you know, they keep talking about the asteroid in the Caribbean. Peanuts, that's small. There's some large ones in Africa, and one of the largest, I believe, is in the Hudson Bay area. And some people say that the whole Hudson Bay area is actually an impact crater. But
Wow.
there's one area that's very
Wow.
round. And when you go to Sudbury, it's made up of meteorite material that hit that, as well as in Quebec.
Mm.
So what does that tell you?
It makes
We-
sense.
we
Hudson
got
Bay
the
shaped
front
that
end.
way.
Yeah, and that all
Yeah.
dates back to between what they say 50 to 70 million years ago. But scientists disputed with Van Flandern, but I think he was onto something, and he had logical reasoning for it.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's information that we're not supposed to have, but we're
Right.
discovering anyways.
That's right.
Listen, I gotta go. I think my
All
wife
right.
wants to come back down and be in the family room, so I'm gonna,
Yes, we have to say goodbye.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hard, but we have to do it.
Thank you, Terry.
Thomas Day.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Namaste to everyone.
Appreciate.
All the best.
Beautiful
Take
Sunday.
care. Bye-bye.
Thanks again,
All right,
Terry.
real good.
Bye-bye.
Everyone have a wonderful day and a good week coming up.
You too.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.